One of the most beautiful elements of the Christian story is that Jesus lived not alone, but in community. The all-powerful God of the universe came down among his creation, and instead of arriving as a conqueror or a king, he was born humbly. He lived in a family. He grew up in a small town. He had friends like Lazarus and John the Baptist. And when it came time for his ministry, ventured not alone, but with others. He recruited a group of simple people to go with him. We now know them as the apostles, but Jesus knew them as companions and friends. That example spread through the early church. The first believers thrived because they lived closely with one another, holding everything in common. In Acts, Paul records that those early believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer, and held everything in common. The movement that started with a frightened couple in a manger grew to a small group of dedicated disciples, thrived as it spread house to house, church to church, and eventually conquered an empire before spreading to every corner of the world. Jesus' message to us is clear. Christianity is most powerful when lived collectively. People thrive in relationship when their lives are filled with love. We can endure any trial when we can depend on each other. Even the smallest communities have the power to change the world. In his gospel, the apostle Jesus loved recorded the words of his Savior, "A new command I give to you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another." And that simplest command remains the cornerstone of our Christian faith. God had always operated like that. He created an Adam and Eve in tandem, for it was not good for them to be alone. When Abraham was called, it was to lead a family who would become a nation. The psalmist, who rose from shepherd to king on the basis of his faith, did so with the help of his mighty men, writing, "Behold how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity." And his son Solomon, the wealthiest and most powerful man of his time, opined, "Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up." I spend a great deal of my time writing on the topic of human flourishing, and one of the foundational elements of the good life affirmed by study after study on the topic is that truly fulfilled people are defined by the depth and breadth of their positive relationships. This has been affirmed by the recent research of the Global Flourishing Study, which finds loving relationships at the center of thriving people's lives. And recent longevity research has even confirmed that those with strong community ties live longer and healthier than those going it alone. Sadly, we live in an era when that core truth has been lost, where our remarkable advances in human prosperity, health, wealth, and safety have not resulted in stronger community. Quite the opposite. In the United States, perhaps the most materially successful nation in the history of the world, people are lonelier, more isolated, and less engaged in community than at any point in recent memory. And these trends are reflected in the broader developed world. A recent Gallup survey found that while in 1990, 33% of Americans had 10 or more close friends, and only 3% claimed to have no close friends, by 2021, 12% of people had no close friends, and only 13% of people had 10 or more. Between 2013 and 2021, only 8 years, the average American spent nearly 10 fewer hours per week with friends and companions, and 10 more hours alone. As a result, the share of lonely middle-aged people almost doubled in every developed nation in the world between 1990 and 2020. And in recent surveys of American teenagers, fully 1/3 feel lonely or left out, the highest numbers on record. This is reflected in our values. A recent Wall Street Journal poll found that between 1998 and 2023, the number of Americans who valued patriotism, the community of country, fell from 70% to just 38%. The number who value religion, the community of believers, fell from 62% to 39%. The number who value having children fell from 59% to 30%, and the number who value community involvement itself fell from 47% to only 27%. And these values have manifested in declining church attendance for decades in the wealthiest countries in the world. Something is desperately broken, even among many believers. In our prosperity and technological advancement, we have forgotten a core truth: no man is an island. And for our lives to be joyful and complete, we need each other. That is also our opportunity. Jesus showed us that even the smallest of groups dedicated to love of God and love of neighbor can transform the world. And part of our role as faith-driven entrepreneurs and investors is to use the tools at our disposal to live in and build community at every level. We can do that through our families first, and by cultivating professional environments that value family formation, advocating for parental leave, adoption benefits, and policies that allow our people to prioritize those closest to them, and by setting the example of establishing and leading godly families ourselves. We can do that in our companies, creating businesses with flourishing cultures. We can surround our employees with people who care for them and emphasize working together and loving one another at work. We can empower them with chaplains who can minister to them when they fall, as Solomon understood, and help them to their feet. And we can encourage cultures of service where everyone our people touch feels values in every interaction. We can build communities in real estate, structuring workplaces that encourage connectedness and surrounding residents of multifamily housing complexes with chaplains and community managers dedicated to making their houses homes, connecting them with residents and outside resources who help them know they are more than just a tenant. They are loved and valued. We can do it through investing in entertainment that highlights hope, faith, and love rather than nihilism and brokenness, through redemptive music, film, and television and art that emphasizes what is good, true, and beautiful in this world and helps people draw closer together rather than pushing them apart. We can do it through philanthropy at home and abroad that lets people in our local cities and in countries all over the world know that Christians, at least, will always care for them, that believers in Jesus will rally around the suffering wherever they are and invite them into a church that knows no national boundaries or ethnic or racial lines. And we can do it in our countries, using capital to shape institutions that can promote unity and self-sacrifice rather than selfishness and isolation. Jesus gave us the model. He showed us with his own life. Now the choice is ours. If we truly want to solve the world's greatest problems, we cannot do it alone. We can only do it by coming together, by working together, and pursuing faithfully the great commandments to love God, using his example to love others. The earliest word for church was ekklesia, from the Greek for assembly, gathering, or a called out group. Where two or more are gathered in his name, that's us. So, the choice is ours. In a world of brokenness, fragmentation, division, isolation, and devaluation of the human spirit, will we be silently captured by the spirit of the age or push back against that tide? Can we come together and show the world that a group of people bound by the example of a loving God can do?